나는 먼저 저게 다슨 dembasangi jemdende dane la sobekeda kuson tusumgi ane kuyu yendenda ane sungu yende tuyu yende kuson tusum yende jewe tone ane jike ane chasawadi ane dusjine shubare dine zada anzugi samtayde karrelana da sangi na rangi lamatiki lamiki ane kuyu yende na tuyu yende ane sungu yende ki samta ane dine lami ngāzuli chū sū ngāzu chū ñeñche ane chik gyāwachi dipa mā mēwa suyā tāng gyāwē jāwati yā guānyā guāndu pē guhab rād pē mā sē gētīn chēmbu yīn sēne lama yā gētīn chēmba tāng ane dī nāshīn ane chik lami gī ñamlēnche thār chīmba nāshīn ngī gyā ane ñamlēnche thār chīnche sāngyō gupa tōpa chī shō sēmbī gē dūs chēne nā ngāzu samdāng gōre hēsā gōmbu gōre tī sēdi dī shō yā ngāzu dūs shū sāpirē.
Good evening. This morning in the first verse, we saw that in the verse of prostration, one calls to mind the incredible qualities of Buddha Shakyamuni and the entire lineage of realized beings. Their qualities of body, speech and mind, as well as their great kindness and benefit they brought into this world. And with this having arisen, one prostrates to them. And together with this, one also recalls the tremendous qualities as well as kindness of one's Lama. In particular, amongst all kindnesses that he has brought to one, that of giving the Dharma, of teaching the Dharma. Thinking how truly fortunate we are to have such opportunities. May they continue. May our connection remain strong and opportunities such as these abound. And not only in order so as to receive teachings, but so that I can then implement them into implement them into my very way of being, so that I can develop incredible qualities just like you, my teacher, has, so that I too can become pure and perfect just like you and be of great benefit in this world. So that in brief is the meaning of what we looked at this morning.
난 다들 마 쉬야디 다 여기는 저기 한 마 두스지네 직 점기인스 비 켈린로지 담자로지 담자 켈린스 어치샤고래 안디 마세 다데디 원마 송야기 돈다 닝보디 파 dorje 차 dorje 차고래 원 마시에게 가르가르 시기에베디 dordu치 순고래 디나데 dor드마 다데마 저 시에 저러와다 디돈다 닝보디 디나데 dordu치 순고래.
The text will continue with the author, the conqueror Gendün Gyatso, making his promise to compose this text, and as well as presenting in brief the meaning of the text that will follow.
나 지기디래 류미자 닝보 매바라 최선미 닝보 렌되바 케대준 덴베 신년라 녜모서 담기 끼디 불사.
The second verse, to you with an impure and insubstantial body, but who aspires to attain the heart of the profound Dharma, spiritual aspirant with faith and enthusiasm, offer this extraordinary discourse as a gift.
다들 이행은 저 쇼베 가르치선선의 상기기 상기 구디게 하는 즉 투디게卷묘모 탐제단 자와卷탐제단 자와 아니 지기 동반이라 냠바셰베 이제 자다 아니 구디게 네네 베네 구디라 아니 롱주소비 구데 트리뷰 구디소에 묘모 베게卷탐제단 자와 안卷탐제 트리뷰 구디네 셰 세지 디시 쇼베 구유된다 디치로와 다 나등 안들라 아주게네 류데 간세 해사시 간제사 사기기데 달라미 구디기데 당 아주 류데 가레라나 류미자 닝보 매발라 소르다 아주 류데 미자와레스 미자와 닝보 매바레스 닝보 매발라스네.
The first verse, it was referred to the qualities of the Buddha's mind, which is free, or of all Buddha's minds, which is completely free of all faults, the afflictions together with the seeds and imprints. And the body, or bodies of Buddhas, these too are freed of any ripening results of the afflictions. And what about the state of our own body? So that then is referred to in the first line, to you with an impure and insubstantial body.
Chisna denege ane chige deus madina kala sada madina subonaya an chige deutang madina subonayo subokangachya an deus tuwa damne an neyam da an koryu da lungzo ba da koryu zo ba di genjin ma subol na sho sho roji chisna nga subudilya gyun sho 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 roji chisna luiti tenis mi zangwa sid chisna deneshi nga luiti tenis yes.
The situation with the body of an ordinary being such as ourselves is that it is impure, meaning that from merely a slight cause, faults arise, such as discomfort or illness arises. So from a slight cause such as being a little bit hungry, just from that we experience some physical discomfort. Or from the weather, it's just something slight like the temperature, we experience discomfort and perhaps even severe discomfort. And if the environment isn't an environment that we are used to, but we are somewhere much more polluted, this too can cause us discomfort in terms of illness. And so too, from if we eat food that is inappropriate for us, that from such a slight cause as that, illness too can arise. So this is the situation of our body. From just a minor cause, we can experience discomfort, suffering.
ane chigi chulu che, ane china kala che ya dan chulu, chiko dinigi maje wene subu di kyo cha rugo ruwa, dipene chuma dan wene subu liye chuma dan wene subu kyo cha, kala ma dan wene kala kyo subu kyo cha, kala yu ju dan cha san ru chi, yang se yang ne ya du, so lega le di cha san zhu san cha san subu li dan du ya su du wa dinga ne, kasi ne saya du ya kala nyo go, kala nyo di subu ki che du ruwa da, ane 다 둘로 먹으면 수부 가비하게 치더라. 강바게 돼 수부 치더라. 지상 안주 조선 지상 수부 지상 안주 수부데 지게 차고다 땜부를 닝보지 메디게 남상 교와 쇼쇼쇼쇼쇼쇼 되네 진짜 즉 되네기 통에 송교 15지 되어서 마디베네 남상 교와 쇼쇼쇼로시 되네 송교 야고 제도 되네 제도 qab래 아직 내암래도 디겐제네 부로 시선 남상 부충조지 그래서 내엠 부디기 가서 두된 총조지 마도요 말되네 주소는 수부들이야 강아지지 강아지 두고 봐 지상은 수부디 제자 닝보요 말했어 제자 땜보다 야고 부다 보다 말해서 닝보 말해서 야고 부다 보다 말해서 그러다 대체 닝보요 말해서 닝보 야고 부다 보시고 꽤 되네기 매바도 말해서 시고로 와도
The body being insubstantial, we can understand that it is insubstantial, essenceless, meaningless, purposeless. Here we understand it in this context of from a slight fault, suffering arises. So, and not only that, but in order to protect our body and lessen the chances of discomfort arising, a lot of time and energy is put into making sure we are appropriately dressed, that we have comfortable shoes, that we eat appropriately, and that we drink enough. Because if, for example, we drink too little, we can readily dehydrate and get a headache. If we are hungry, we will either be at least distracted but we may well lose energy. And if we're walking around without shoes, unless the ground is soft and flat, this is going to hurt. So a lot of time, energy, and expense goes into merely preventing the arisal of discomfort. And such effort is required because from the smallest of causes, discomfort can come, but not only discomfort. Something, illness, for example, quite substantial illness can come. So for a few years now, we've lived with the pandemic, and from this we learned from tiny particles of virus, grave illness can come. And we know also from our earlier education, we need to protect an open wound, because slight bacteria or tiny bacteria coming into an open wound, this too can make matters vastly worse. So the way we understand this term, our body being insubstantial, is to recognize that it's of actually quite poor quality, because just from a minor cause, discomfort or even severe illness, anywhere on the scale, can readily arise.
And then I was so draggy, you can sometimes I can struggle as it do. That the call now so super draggy, goody, and to get Pami Lune, Covanal Juyongorua. Digi Sabon Masona and Padamai, Saboni, the Partation, Duchene, and the Jigget, Duchene, Druticaju. Chagua, Padamagi, Sabon Sawaso, Dini, Tation, and Subu Ditu, and the Pada Manigi 70 Yadi Canis Yongore City Chaxam Pama Penzuni Pa Chabe Sembake Chaxam de Nomo Body. It is a Nomo Begi, Chaxam Nomo, D. Gentine, Chaxam Gedu, and the Pamani Subun Pa, and the J. and the J. Kum Chick J. Did they need to do anything? And the castle Japan, then man's Ludi Chadga Chagora. Chisan Yukora some Damana, and the Kudu sets in Yukora, Nomo Bachigi, Gudletine, Yontica Chagore. Chisan Dines on the Ningule sometime and the Ludi Ningboy or Mare, Nathan Dele sometime Ludi Timbushu Buddha Hochimare, says the Chagore.
It should be quite clear that our body is certainly far from perfect, and therefore can be said to be of poor quality. And a further reflection here would be on the quality of the causes that led to this body. This body then, of course, came from a fertilized egg, and the reason for the egg being fertilized was due to the intention of our parents. And that would have been one of attachment or desire, certainly for each other, and perhaps also for a child. So attachment or desire is an afflicted mind. So therefore, the consciousness that motivated the coming together of the substantial cause for our body, the sperm and egg, is an affliction. Hence, the quality of the result, this body, is far from perfect, is contaminated, and therefore our body is so readily becomes ill, or discomfort so easily arises.
Daddy reading also, Daddy Nala, Shula carrying was done as a semi-gurua, as some of the corner sacho, Nayat, Geshe, and the chicken, and it's Gavrilla, and the Gaku Mashimba, and Noto Chasho, and the Tesum Sayada, the new Lokta, Yada, the nigger no more Geshe Rojik, and the Samnotone, the Yodugua. Then also Nagi Geshebine, Gavrilla, and to his cat, Nazi, Shanlia, Nubi, 6 Chaya, 6 share, and Cassil, Zuin share, and the Jigger, and the Miko Hota, Geshe, the nigger, Tone, then also Gishi. Yahweh 시골 때가 저기 삼론 야후에 용고래 여대 이내가 줄 괜 삼로 괜디 너저 삼로도 용초초로지 그진 데네 망고 용고래 용초초로지 나게 되네 샘디에 가서 뿌이다고 야고 좀 말해 나서 계시티에 대한 팬배다 야후에 제 시골 때 이내 망무지안에 가지고 지금 닝보 매바 코너 측수시야다 현고하다 기시야다 안주시야다 안에 지금 아주 낙하게 기시야다 되니시도 아주 나디에 이니 닝보 부이다고 야고시 말에 교망부 예딩에 자고로 와 그래서 되니서 아주 류 아주게 샘 아주 류나 차사 부이다고 야고시 말에 닝보 매바지래 해서 그래.
When we think then about the situation of our body, we see that it is insubstantial in that it is politely one could say of limited quality, but really it is of poor quality. It's not what we would choose if we could devise it ourselves. But this isn't only the case with our body, so too with our speech. All too readily, when we engaging in conversation with others, we will engage in gossip. We will speak harshly directly to or about someone. We will lie and deceive others. We will divide people who are close, or through how we speak, those who are distant, keep them apart. So this we do readily, and not just do we do it easily, but we often take great delight in such communication. And this comes to us easily, just like with our body, that so easily discomfort and illness arises. And our mind, unfortunately, is in a similar state. Just like our body and our speech take a very minor or slight cause for a physical discomfort to arise or our speech to go in a negative way, so too with our mind. It readily, without much of a cause, goes in a negative direction. In other words, the afflictions arise. Attachments, anger, pride, the ignorance of not knowing, and therefore by having a confusion or lack of knowledge, encountering further problems and wrong views. So these and many other afflictions arise readily within us for the slightest of reasons, just like with our speech going in an unwholesome way and our body experiencing discomfort and illness.
다던다라 대신에 쇼베셰게 상기기 구송툭되게 숨버디 구송툭 숨버디 닝보 균 탐제단 자와 아니 디기 시현 라다 현이가를 펜바 짱짱마도 뇌바 균에 매바 진짜 균 탐제단 자와래 닝보 야보래 해세로 당아주 류가 이숨디다 균 망보다 예디겐 균 망보다 예바인자 진짜 닝보 말에 해서지 다던다라 다 디니티 개발 차고래.
This verse I started by saying we've heard about the qualities of a Buddha, let's compare to ourselves. And here we can see a stark difference between our own situation and that of a Buddha's body, speech and mind. These, whilst ours is insubstantial in that it is of poor quality, that of a Buddha is perfected. The body, speech and mind of the Buddha not only never brings harm to others, but only benefits others. And this is because of the great quality of, or the perfect essence of the mind, body, speech and mind of a Buddha. Whereas the essence of our speech and body and mind is somewhat poorer. So the difference between the two should be seen as quite stark.
아니네 나 증이바데 최선미 닝보 렌데 바서래 제산다 최선미 닝보 렌데 바시디 다 상기 구송 투숨에 데 차바데 당보네 주변에 되는 레베스네 말해서 그러다 상기야 당보 아주 나시래디래 제산다 상기에서 그런 롭정제 냠는제야 곰 접지고 똑바디게 냠는데 야야야 권에 폐제되는 균치 찾아 마마마 뇽뇽을 땅에 누스는 냠는지는 균 매바 찾아 매바 탈 매바 쇠 균 담제세 되는 연단 담제 탈치바 차바레스 지사디 최 냠는 제발된 사발에 차고래제 제사다 최삼의 닝보 세대 제사 최삼의 이 냠송안저데 상기기 구수공 투숨디 당보 안주 나시레데나 냠는지는 야보 차발에스 당보도 디슈 상시하니.
Looking at the second line, who aspires to attain the heart of the profound Dharma. Here, reflecting on the historical Buddha or any Buddha, no Buddha was always a Buddha, but became a Buddha. Each Buddha, for example, Buddha Shakyamuni, was once no different from us. An ordinary being with an insubstantial body, with speech habituated to unwholesome communication, and a mind in which afflictions readily arose. No different from us. But at some point, he started this process of applying and then continued this process of applying the teachings of the Buddha Dharma and integrating them within himself, slowly transforming his mind over lifetimes until eventually he arose as a faultless being, a perfected being, a Buddha.
제가 당보 상주 좀는데 예배 보고로와 안에 사이준데 유묘로와 유 되네 마 유묘네 당보 김바차들 김바의 유묘래 안 되네 지는 샤샤도지는 바지 네 가서 랍중제 되네 곰 로주 까와제 로주 안에 그 곰잡도스네 안 되네 지네 칼라다 되네 가야마서 도스 로주 곰잡 안 되네 지는 상이고 봐서 녀모 바제 상이고 봐 상이 차선 상이
If you think of the life story of the historical Buddha, he was born into this world as a prince. He later married and was, of course, then not a monk. But at some point, he turned his back on the palace life, entered the forest as a renunciate, and meditated in severe conditions for a period of 6 years, and continued his training beyond that, and eventually showed the aspect of arising as a Buddha, a perfected being.
다 닝보 제 쇠투에 여러 닝보된 아주 렌투그레베스 렌투그레에서 오다 간스링그레에서는 최서 뭐 냠술렘발에 때네 최 냠술렘발에 때네 냠len 제네 되네 닝보 상기 구송 투송 나시 닝보디 나주 레아 아니 직 되네 렌투그레 자투그레에서 최서 뭐 닝보스 세대.
When reading the meaning of these two lines together, someone like ourselves, each and every one of us, this impure and insubstantial body that we have, holding in mind the meaning too of our faulty speech and mind, all of this, we have the potential, the capacity to transform into the perfected body, speech and mind of the Buddha. And how so? In the second line, by aspiring, or here we'd say applying oneself to attain or achieve the very heart of the profound Dharma. That is the method to arise as a Buddha ourselves.
닝보 상기고 봐 토액이 대대내기 토액이 듬바다 되어요래서 되어요래서 아니 되네 케디준 덴비기 신이라서도 아니 개위 신이야 아니 그 케디 세 경험서 소리다 로마틱이 로마 경험서 아니 상기 쳐래 대바 상기 아니 상기를 대바 개위 신이를 대바요 봐서 아니 되네 전 덴바시도 아니 경험서기 최념는 제하다 상기고 토비 쳐도 최념는 제할 전주의 덴바를 샤스 지난 되네자 이 경험서야 이 뭐서 담기 깨디 불르세도 아니 이 아니 즉 Sanji Gopang, Nyanen Jay Rimba, and Mosawas and Yabusu, Kabad Papa, Yabudi, Vima, Dam City, Damadi, Chorazulia. He is over that.
This verse, composed by Gendün Gyatso, is addressed to us ordinary beings. Hence it starts with, to you with an impure and insubstantial body, understanding that you can transform this body into the three jewels into that of a Buddha by striving in the profound Dharma. That is the method. Then in the third line, we are again continuing to be addressed, spiritual aspirants ourselves, with faith in the Lama and the Buddha and the three jewels, and enthusiasm for the Dharma, for receiving teachings and integrating them within yourselves. For you, I am composing this extraordinary text. This is my offering, my gift to students like you.
Moserve Damdi and the council Geshe Nimba council Pugins taking some water. There's not Nimba Yahustena and an answer Nimba Yahu Pando against Teadu and answer Nimba Rahamidilia, Gawakaza, Gawushu Chungura, Gawushu Yungure, and Delia, and Nimba Digi, and Nimba de Beju Diala Sosuke, and Sem Lusemlia Digi. Little Gorwa Dinashim, Jazada Azulia Azuki, Azina, Yomobatam, Jazz Dunga Tamji, Mabase, Dunga Mabasuada, Dunga Gutchas and Mabasue, Kanekan Sur, Mabasuada. Dimursuga, Tablam Karkar and Yamle, Jagoresibi, Denigi Rimbadi, Tamsidu, Deni Rimbadi. Ma and Shansuma, she is daddy, Mosawa said, did it, and Yomobatam, Jega, Ma, the Dunga, the Dunga, Sawaning in the Mevasuada, Dingy Tiawa, Tobeke, Tablam, di, then Mosaw, Yahuda, Yahu, on di, and she is Damdima, Damgas or Dima, she is actually the Sungorwa, daddy, she is in the Killing Damjawa, the Damjawa Sigurwa.
Just like in our own lives, when we receive a gift from someone, and that gift we recognize as being of great benefit, naturally delight arises within us, and we will utilize it fully. So here, this is the way for us as spiritual aspirants to receive the gift that Gendün Gyatso is giving to us. And what makes this discourse extraordinary is the meaning contained therein. Firstly, the causes of our suffering, the afflictions, will be identified, as well as the method to eradicate them together with their seeds. Because it is through, firstly, recognizing the source of our suffering, and then secondly, applying ourselves to the antidote, that we'll be able to attain a state of lasting happiness. And that is the most extraordinary of gifts, and this is what Gendün Gyatso is going to compose here, and what he is bestowing upon us. So in this fourth line, he's making the commitment, a promise, to compose such a text for us.
The Tigniva, the Church Samo Sigdoa, Church Samo said, Church Samodi, Mosa said, the Naji, Church Samodi shaking like Roches and Church Samo said, one of my share, Church, Church Samo, Dina Duja, watching Dorje, my Dordusun, what just check on it.
The second line, the last two words, profound Dharma, that is what is going to be presented here. So the summary, I mentioned that the meaning of this verse is Gendün Gyatso's promise to compose, so that we see in the fourth line, as well as the summary of what will be taught, that is the profound Dharma, the identification of the cause of our suffering and the method for eradicating it.
Tisana Delia and Dosing Ma Sungis and Ma Kilin Damjache, Di Shula Kariungores 메딘 시기를 경험서 디야고 년제 냠는 제고다 세마 안지 꾸마야 지고래.
Not only in this verse is, because you can see from my explanation that the meaning is quite hidden within here. So not only is the subject matter presented in brief, not only is the promise to compose also included here, but so too is the exhortation to students, to the spiritual aspirants, to listen well and apply what is presented here to your own mind. That encouragement is included here too.
That's this is the that in body as a dordushi shube in a carsungora sene. That this is Shivasha Sangi, Lu Ku Sung Tu Sum Dige, Guen Tamjet and Java, and the Yende Poson Sobas Yanyaris. Then around the Ludi and the Mizawa, Ningbo Melvar, the Sangi Kusung Tu Sum to the Ningbo. Yena mena dile haba ya chayo mare. Tanga zu lu di mizawa kanga dunga chasa yon chocho ande de ningbo meba chires. Andu so yo de. Ta ine nga zu lu di ningbo meba da de kanga chi tu sue chi re de ine so nga zu semshu chago yo mare. Semshu chago yo mare. Nga zu lu di ya ande je sangi ku sung tu sum na shin tobyagi ningbo 토비에게 가서 탑럽이어레스 가르여서는 최디레스 제산디 최냠는 제발할 때는 디톱도 그래스 제산디네자 아줄야 디토비에게 가서 닝보 매바데 마 매바 dorje 닝보 상지 구송 투숨용데 닝보디 나신지 톱투에 가서래야 토비에게 탑럽이어레 아주게 무슨 냠는 제에게 아주를 누바요레스 제상 아주를 누바요바지나 디토베게 탑람니디 아주 베주 제바이나 아주 닝보디 톱토 그래서
Summarize the meaning of this verse. This verse, the contrast drawn between the situation of a Buddha with a perfected body, speech and mind, perfected in the sense that because all faults have been completely eradicated, and all good, through all good qualities being perfectly developed, completely developed, the Buddha's body, speech and mind can be of incomparable benefit to others and will cause no harm. We know this is not the situation for ourselves. Our body's impure and insubstantial. Faults to arise so readily. We engage in non-virtue so readily. But moreover, our situation is not hopeless. There is a solution. We can radically transform ourselves through hearing the profound Dharma. And not merely through hearing the profound Dharma, but because we have an incredible innate capacity within ourselves to radically transform our mind, through applying ourselves with consistency and effort, we can completely transform our mind from this current impure state into a pure body, speech and mind of a Buddha. This is entirely within our grasp and possible for all of us.
nang samlo thone gyua ta che an digi tuku dunga se ure che jing de ji sho so ba na jin gar sung go ra sen de ya nga zu ge samlo na la gar yo re de nga du chen na sam ta be ne a zu ge di na nga su bu pe ya go le sam go ma da gyuen ji da go ma sam dang go ma ba ge di na nga zu ge so su bu pe ya go ge di na ji ne ji ga ro na wa sam na lo de ne ge na wa ra xia xia ge di na ya go ra chi 야구 미전다지 결혼수고 야구 민들람네 가그마르와 가선 코스소소 야구 여러 삼고르다 제가 미 결혼 야구 민들라네 결혼수고 야구 민들 결혼지지선 균지잖아 가그마르 결혼 기시딩가 계기니 분들 야구 민들람네 가그마르 아니 결혼 삼다라 야구 민들 삼디기 민들람이 균지잖아 아주 가그마르 제가 아주 소소나 삼나 아주 류가 있습니다. 균균에 하고 통고 말에 마통화 자 연단자야 그 뿌이다 오래 해야 돼. 안디나제 삼다체 저기 내가 해야지. 제가 디프이다고도 손급체 미세 코로나야. 걔네 맛이 봐도 니도 나자냐 레서 제가 침바세다. 탈바다 상예세디. 근데 최고 계신 마시는 니고 삼코나 딴거 말아. 제가 되네서 저기 제가 되네 삼 다디 거래. 제가 아주 류디 괜가 해 매되게 배 부이다고 쇼직 담진지겐 다진지요라 아주 어디 삼로도 괜레스 거다. 디 삼로도 괜레스 그디나 디 삼다 되베이나 야기 주고 말해지래. 제가 되는 아주 류디를 되네 닝보요 마다 람사 나초초로 교어 조초초로 제가 두시래 아주 샘디나 람사 녀모 끼초요 코로 끼초요 녀모 끼초저래 아주 나하게 되네 균두아 제가다 부이다고도 말해서 다 부이다고도 가래라나 상계기디 고송 투숨디 균 탐제단 자와레스 제가 부이다고 해서 디톱고 그래 디톱고도 선배 돈이렇게 그래서 디토비에게 탑람디 가라선 최세야들 디 냠는 제고 선배 돈이 dum바케제 제가 예의 아주 류마디 닝보 매바 상기기 디 구송 투숨 닝보 부이다고 임바디 디니다 하고 전에 당 아주 가르 담가서네 부이다고도 구구에서 올다 다 부이다고 구구에는 최냠는 제고래서 그 삼로 땅 검자고래서 어두숨 거다데
As mentioned in the first talk, the way to eradicate suffering and achieve lasting happiness is through transforming our mind, transforming our way of thinking. Our current situation is that we think our body is pretty fantastic. Our way of speaking is pretty fantastic, and so too is our mind. Saying this sounds a little strange. But think of your reaction when your body is criticized. When someone says, oh, see, I haven't seen you for a while, you look quite different. Then we know how we feel. If someone comments on our speech, criticizes it, we are a little surprised. We take offense. And if someone comments on what kind of mind do you have, what kind of thoughts motivate your behavior and your speech, again, we are uncomfortable. We take offense at that. So from this contrast, we can see how we overemphasize the quality of our body, speech, and mind. And this overemphasis is not in accordance with reality. It's not that our body, speech, and mind is worthless and pervaded and is solely faulty. But the fault is we overemphasize the qualities, such as when someone perhaps rightly points out faults, we still take offense. So this shows how our perspective lacks balance. We overemphasize the good qualities. And as long as we stay deluded in this way, with a way of thinking about ourselves that is not in accordance with reality, this is a severe impediment to our spiritual development, because our thoughts of the Dharma, our mind turning towards the Dharma, will have limited strength and frequency, because what we have is okay. What we have is okay. This, as long as we're thinking like that, our desire to transform will be weak. Whereas, if we reflect well on what's presented here, reflect well on our own situation, then if someone points out the faults of our body, we'll say, quite right. And if they point out the faults in our way of speaking, quite right. And our motivating mind, quite right. This is where I am. Conjoined with this, we come to understand what is possible through applying ourselves. That Buddhahood is possible for all of us, a perfected state, a state freed of faults. Seeing with clear eyes where we are, as well as what is possible for us, that makes it very clear what we want to achieve. Just like in our own life. If we recognize what we have is of low quality, but we can have something of great quality, and that is achievable, we'll apply ourselves. Recognizing then what is possible, and where we are now, we'll want to hear teachings on the Buddha Dharma, and with consistency, apply them to our mind. In this way, transformation will come.
dine za da nga jugi doshine ja nga jugi da jida nga jugi subudi dakwa jago gore yago sungkyop jego gore nga so sungkyop jego gore ine da nga jugi gelya gyungine samna ma je ani dile yaga ji ma thong wa ina ani nga chala jira ji ma ma thong na damga di chesing marwa jesa sanyeyi kusung tusumdi yakore esa da nga jule gyundine de yore esa du sura ji ne da digare kosin sange kusung tobiadi 간지 토고라스는 최념내 집에 토고레스 자상아주 미 류된들 벤데 데네기 닝보 매와데 레데 이나 류된 될야 마수게 남주에 삼로 땅타디 배 지금 야구제 땅 투베는 삼로 배 맞아 야구 사고 땅 투베 판도치면 뉴바치 주투가 만주 류된 될야 차상 삼로 뒤토네 류된 뒤된도 주투야 지금 뉴바치 예디가 야 지금 괜에 열때 연대 여바치 연대제 저게도 제상아도 류딘 될야 최념len 제대 와서 삼로 검개반 삼로 배 뉴버치모 땅 투야 땅 안데 지게 냠len 제 투야기 탈지 직산지 구송 투숨이 산지고반 톱 투야기 딘디에 차바진지 딘데라든 줍투고래 삼로디 땅와도 검개발라든 줍투고래 지다 투야기 되네기 뉴바 예디게레스 지나다 눈로기 류딘다 만주 미 류딘인데 자기 말레스 지사 되네기 데레스 데네자다 만주기 가르쳐고래선 될야 디그 산지 유구숨 투숨이 산지 고반 디나시 토국도 선백이 된 사모님보디 렌디 토국도 선배 돈이기 dumba게 오래서 다들 돈이기 토국도 선배 돈이 dumba게 봐나 만주기 사지질 조나 될 조고도 선배 돈이 dum바 숙침보나 될야 그디 니미직 조로와 네 잘라지가 디라고도 선배는 아니 돈이 dumba 숙침보나 안 디라에게 탑람 가르네 베제 땅제 진니미직 라도 지기로와 어디나시 다 산지 고송 투숨 탈침배 산지고 봐 탑고도 선배 닝보디 렌드기 dum바 숙침고 그래서 다데 렘바 숙지도 안데 가르치 토그레스도 최념len 제발에 토그레 제산 최념len 지기스 돈이 dum바게제 안디 최념len 제게 존주다 템베도네 무퇴시는 가신 조신원에 안 존주다 템베도네 냠len 제고레스 디 제바에나다 두신 제와야디 안주 제와에 디레스다 삼로디데시 삼로 얇게 땅외야디 산지 고방 톱도 선배 삼로디 뭐 권에 공토 야 누버축 따야당 다 산지 고방 토발랑이 최디 냠len 지인 셈비 검잡지 냠len 지인 셈비 dum바디에 뭐 공배다 땅 엔델레테네 안다 냠len 지알 고츠디 파 존주디 무퇴시 가신 조신원에 안 존주디 템베도네 된고 템바체 두치 냠len 제고레스 디 아저기다 셈주와다에 디레다 야고 디고 헤디 디레스 대신 먹어야 돼 가서 디나 디 야고도 마다제 아니 지게 아주게 닝보 그디나 야고장 야래 삼나데디 노트 차려 그래서디 언도선다 셈야도게 캬바디디 제가서 냠len 제고데 야가디 디레디 담가 디레디 제디 냠len 제고래서 물어
Here, it's important that you understand clearly the meaning, because we currently find ourselves in with a view that is an extreme, in that we over-exaggerate the good qualities of our body, speech, and mind. The mistake would be to then undervalue this life we have, this body we have, this physical basis we have. To undervalue it would be to fall into the opposite extreme. What I really want you to take from this talk is a more balanced approach, or the understanding of what a more balanced approach would be, and to then develop it. Because I've spoken about then our overemphasis on or exaggeration of our good qualities, but we also need to recognize how remarkable this physical basis is that we have achieved. So we are born as a human, not as an animal or another class of being. And as a human being, with this body, with this life, we are capable of doing something quite remarkable. We can transform our minds, radically transform our minds, spiritually develop in that way, and be of great and meaningful benefit to others. This is possible for all of us, independent on this basis, this physical basis that we've achieved. Animals cannot do that. They cannot do that. So here, the purpose of this reflection is to gain a more realistic perspective of where we are, as well as an understanding of what is possible for all of us. Because, just like in your own life, if someone says, oh, you should get that or go there, you most probably respond with a shrug of the shoulders, yeah, whatever. But if you understood very clearly why you should go there or why you should get that item, and have come and thereby come to see that it's indispensable, you'll make great effort. Here, through this reflection, you come to balance your understanding of where we are and what is possible. And through that balancing, an enthusiasm will arise, knowing what we could be, what our potential is. And also through understanding that it's not beyond any of us. Merely through repeated effort over a sustained period, change will come. The mind will transform slowly, sometimes more, sometimes less, but it will transform, gathering pace as we apply ourselves over time. And the purpose of this way of thinking is to give us, to arise the desire to spiritually transform. And we need this strength of mind to challenge and overcome deep-seated habitual patterns that prevent us from applying ourselves. Always being drawn to varying activities, and not just physical, but our way of thinking. Our mind being quite far from the Dharma. Whereas when one has generated this enthusiasm, all that one does is pervaded by the determination through what I'm thinking about, what I'm doing, may bring about my desired goal. In this way, we overcome all forms of hesitation or restraint or procrastination, and we apply ourselves wholeheartedly to cultivating the Buddha Dharma within our own minds. And to bring this about, we need a realistic understanding of where we are, as well as what we can achieve. And through that, we will apply ourselves. Gendün Gyatso here has given his discourse or his spiritual instructions to us. Or he's presented that what will come, so he's made his promise, and in brief he's mentioned he will give a discourse on the profound Dharma. So here we've had it in brief. Now the main body of the text starts. The introduction has been within these first two verses. Now, with the prostration, the promise to compose, the subject matter in brief, the exhortation to the students. Now we come to the main body of the text. Now to the third verse. If even conquerors abiding in the pure lands of the 10 directions honor and serve due to their gratitude for the tantric spiritual instructions their Lama taught, Should unexceptional people not do likewise? Here we start with the first stage in the actual presentation of our training, which is recognizing that we need knowledge, because we need knowledge, information, in order to be able to meditate. What are we going to contemplate if we have no knowledge? And because this is the process to transform one's mind through meditation based on knowledge. This is how we learn how to train our mind. But to gain this knowledge, we need a teacher, a guide, a lama, someone who can impart knowledge to us, as well as guide us in how to integrate that within ourselves.
Bendigo Lama Tenche, and Lama Tisan Chushu, and then Lama Tisu Chushu, then Chusumba Nashin, also Dusin, Yamlin Jeshe, and then Sanjoko Tovare, Sashu. Chick did. Jesanda Sanjoko Topnaya, and then Yankomi Rangi, Lama de Zulia, and Chick Dusin, Lamalia Kushepchin Dusin, Chigore, Sashu.
In this, so again, let's read the first two lines in the Tibetan, which for us are the first and the third line. So it's a little awkward as for us in English to read it without the third line in the Tibetan, which is our second line. So I'll just read the two together and then come to Genda's commentary. If even conquerors abiding in the Pure Lands or the 10 directions honor and serve due to their gratitude for the tantric spiritual instructions their lamas taught. So here, in the start of the text, we are being shown that we have to rely on a teacher. It is through relying on a teacher that we are able to receive teachings. Not merely receive teachings, but understand through his guidance how to integrate them within ourselves and thereby attain the state of a conqueror or a Buddhahood. And it's through that we generate respect for or reverence for our teachers.
And in that, Georgina Shubiki and Yawa Sanje Tamje and Dambo Lamate, Lamis and the Chushu and Damgan Nation Yamlin Chabalatine, San Yokoma Tovare, San Yokoma Tova, Yamlin Dusnaware. Jizada and Jansamba Tiki and Rangi Lama and Lea Damgan again that Yuta. Damgan Lamal, Chusungan Lamalia, and Dusine, and Lamatis, Chushu, and the Chushim, Nango, Nangje, Nangore, Sassungo.
And further, as we see explicitly in the first line, conquerors or Buddhas, all of them achieve the state of Buddhahood through relying on a spiritual teacher. All of them. And those and all bodhisattvas in the world, they are doing that right now. They are all relying on a spiritual teacher, and they have done so in order to become a bodhisattva, and they are continuing to do so in order to become a Buddha. None are progressing without relying closely on a spiritual teacher.
De Lamala, the Jin Dembe, Siju Kila Nasida, Chisa, the Jin, Bendigo Lama Zenlia, Chushu, dan lama de la chu shu ma za lama di be rang le jin che bo de ken che bu yin san be ge lama ge jin de da lama ge ma du su su nyam den je war sam de ne tang wo ma ji kom nyam den du spa song je song de de ne ge nyen je so so ra nyam den je so su ge gyu le ya an ji ji ge do ba de ye ngo ko ne ko de phe de lama de ge jin che mo re sa de je sa lama de jin che bo so so le jin che bo de ge jin che mo re sam jin je da lama ge yuen den de ya lama ge jin je ba re se Jisa jin jin bege an la sishu ki la na su de lama lia an jige lama lia nyengur shu ya dang lama lia chobu shu ya la so ba ndu sin lama shib shu ya la so ba ndu sin an na nango re je da sumba jin jin be sishu ki la na su.
Third line in the Tibetan, our second line, honor and serve due to their gratitude. Here, the students, whether Buddhas when they were training as bodhisattvas, all those bodhisattvas in the world right now, all students who are serious about cultivating the minds of the Buddha Dharma, they reflect on the great kindness of their teachers, and with the second meaning of the benefits that their teacher brings into their lives and the lives of others. And this is done primarily through recalling the great benefits of the teachings, the tantric spiritual instructions one is receiving from one's teacher. And this leads to the wish to honor and serve them due to revering them, valuing them and their guidance. And then this comes about through reflecting on their qualities and their kindness. And this then leads to a deep sense of gratitude. This sense of gratitude comes through reflecting on their qualities and kindness, and this gratitude is expressed through making offerings to the teacher, to serving the teacher, and in particular through closely following their spiritual instructions. In other words, meditating in the way that is advised.
George na juve sangye dan chanju semba chasan range lamalya denegi lametsne chu shu lamege gedin den lamege ya shopshu shu tin chiguyo bana da member namki muchi sa de nganzu de inji mi jewe yin bare es warda ngaji ko sangye dan chanju semba de ki konzo pe denegi lamalya lami jin jen bada lami gejin je lamalya shipshu lami zene chue tin chi yuen ngarang so de yin de yin so da man ba nam gi mu chi sa ngarang so da ga go ma shin ba yin sa nyam len de to be gyu la ka ya ma je ba sa de ne gi chue tin he dam ga shu lama tin che lama di zene chue shu an lama di ga an ya ji gejin jen bi thone a lami gi lamalya si shu go de be di yin ji mi chi che go de yin ma ro sa wo mu chi sa.
And coming to the fourth line, should unexceptional people not do likewise? This is then a very common way of writing in Tibetan. The meaning here is, if Buddhas and Bodhisattvas train like this, relying closely, intimately on their spiritual teacher, then there's no question that ordinary people, unexceptional people like ourselves, should do likewise. How can it be? How could it possibly be that someone like ourselves should do our own thing and not follow the example of our role models? So therefore, there is no question. It's obvious. We should follow the example of the perfected beings. We should follow the example of those who are striving to become perfected too, the bodhisattvas in this world. There is no question that we should follow their example and rely closely on a spiritual teacher. The meaning of this fourth line is emphasizing the great importance of a spiritual teacher. This is something one will come across regularly in the Buddha Dharma, that it is indispensable that one relies closely on a spiritual teacher.
다 지단에 저게 낭외 취마세 저게 지단에 지진비기 지소나래 롭종 가래 제비네 기현디게 전부쇼 차거로와 네 저게 롭종으로 제비네 랍라로 제비네 지나다 롭종 제행 기현디게 전부쇼 배 기현 야고시고 거래 기현메나 랍종 기현메나 롭종 하죠 롭종 신야요 말에 지나다 매반자데 네가 투제절라서 쇠타 랍gen 기현메나 dine soshiya mere, dine mene yargi zhoya mere ba. Chidang lobchong mene, lobchong megi lumba dila yargi chungwa dang, lobchong gaza mi, lobchong yaga yugen mi dike gyagab dike, yargi yaga dang, yungo rwa, di samlo dang tangi tohne, lobchong tohne dhugo rwa. Chidang dine yasa, nga zuki jike, chi kiik di yagbo shingba la ya, genchi kugo rwa, inji michi genchi kugo rwa. Di menbi nga zu liya gari ne, kangbo soya re, ane jike, 저게 다 제모를 신나데 안지게 셰 참나 러시아 땅에 가리네 차상 인지 된제 장의 신나 부이다고 야고 차고 얼마도 게 맞된 바지 안지고 수직이 돼서 신의 신거되네 부이다고 야고 차가고 와 되네자 개인들 지단기 지딘비기 게셰베네 저게 랍겐기네 게 전부 쇼지 차고 와
This quality or this training that is so emphasized in Buddhism is certainly not unique to Buddhism. It's the same in our society. All the knowledge and skills that we have developed, this has come about independence on the guidance and the training of someone else. Think of our schooling and our further education, very clear. We had teachers who imparted knowledge to us. And without teachers, we would stay really ignorant. We'd be illiterate, and we really would not have a clue on how the world works. And if you think of all the technological development that has come about in the world seemingly very rapidly in recent times, that's not the case actually at all. Whilst many products have become accessible to us, they have been developed by greatly skilled engineers and technicians, independent on the preceding generation's knowledge, and which came about independence on the generation before that, and so forth. The various fields of knowledge, whether engineering or technology or medicine, these broad fields of knowledge have been building over millennia, and that knowledge has been imparted from teacher to student, and then student in their own way has become a teacher, whether formally or informally in their place of work, passing on knowledge. So too, in other areas of life, for example, athletes or singers and dancers, to be able to perform at a level that is quite remarkable, natural talent is insufficient. Training is required, and training from someone who knows what they're talking about is required. So this is the case throughout society, and so too in the Buddha Dharma.
당한 주기 리모트야 라서바다 미기 통하기 잘라 내가로다 미기 통야 강보서야다 리모트야다 샤브로차야다 셰다 미기 타야데 이내 델리아 랍켄기 야고주 거베나 고구여바이나 당한 주기 삼로 땅지 삼리 토네 아니 삼로 야가 가르레 두아 가르도 안디기 삼로디 땅베나 나서 랑라 간스 뉴게 샹라 간스 뉴도 누스네 디네 삼로 디니스 땅베나 랑라 간스 팽도 샹라 디파 예와체야다 삼로디 파 냠비디 파 도려야다 상비리디 야 공모 공표 땅야디 니가서 미기 통과가서 삼땅 거로봐 삼땅와자다 곧 삼다이디 베다스가 믹통에는 오코이 딘디징아이 딘치게스 베제저와 디난 제메라 디는자 다디 마줄야 삼루토네 라트치게 말랍케니코아디 베마스 기에침 차고 디다디 예인디 나가주기 다 계획 신예세 람든 지엔디다 베 디 람든 지엔디 체디자 말에 마주 띵기 대화 코유 동화 균 탐제들 세세 야 탈바다 탐지 김부 고방 토액이 델리아 조사기 람가 땡칸세 람치시기 기인 샤고로 제가 뺀 마시기라 기인디 Geshe chago re, chizadi gen goya di Geshe shu re se orda, di gen dinegi gen yago chi marjung ba, matin ba gen matin ba ina, shu yin nyamlen to ne, anzu yago shing tu ma re se.
We can see then that in society, all that we perceive has come about independent on not only the efforts and endeavors of others, but actually a whole lineage of knowledge, those who possess knowledge, imparting it to others, training others, helping others develop skills. So everything that we perceive, we can actually relate to in this way. That being said, in a particular area where one lacks any knowledge or much talent, just from what one perceives, to a degree, one can copy or emulate that. This certainly can be done. One won't be able to replicate it or develop a skill matching that of the person that one is copying, but one can do something. But in terms of the inner world, here the situation is starkly different. If we are in the presence of someone who has transformed their mind, merely perceiving them is insufficient. We cannot just copy what someone else has done. We have to be guided. Transforming the mind is quite different from learning a physical skill. It has to be done in dependence on someone's guidance, because it is not readily perceptible to us. Moreover, the higher qualities of these minds that we aspire to, we have yet to ever achieve. So therefore, we hold as an aspiration many levels of inner qualities that we have never attained. Never in all our lives. So therefore, whilst knowledge can be gathered through books, knowledge on the Buddha Dharma can be gathered through books, to radically transform our minds, it's indispensable to rely on a skilled teacher, someone who's able to guide us, both based on his own extensive knowledge, as well as experience based on that knowledge. And in this way, we can start to recognize which ways of thinking are unwholesome and bring harm, and including the many ways of thinking that we are so habituated to, we see as righteous and as indispensable. And we need to then understand how to abandon them, as well as which are the wholesome and virtuous ways of thinking we need to cultivate and strengthen. And all of this, in particular, to learn in a fine detail and how to integrate it within ourselves, we need to rely on a skilled spiritual teacher.
Nyamlin ma Rabten delia Lama delia ben gedin din chimbo dengo res din dengo res din debata din gedin chimbo res demba ina ne garayores ne Lama ya Gyunji ligo mare la Gyunji samlo de ligo mare jazada Lama la jike Gyun tawaina dizene chue shuyegi dewarag maro dewa yong maro chue machine soso shuyegi ko mano soso Lobsang sing maro jiza dirwa jiza diza de jiza daring anzu Lama dizene chue shu ka je ma shu ne soso ge Lobsang la nyamlen jeta de manga singro dine sing wanza singgo za Lama ya Gyun da gyo mar ma da je an lami ge yenden de rang ya ma jige lapshabu ki nga lawa pe ma se gedin chimbo yakbo ya sambe din jango res an din adus chene jango res a chi sungore.
Reflecting on to generate gratitude towards one teacher, this comes through reflecting on his great kindness. So the word I've translated as gratitude is the word for kindness. In the context there, gratitude worked better. But the word also is the meaning for kindness. So the purpose of reflecting on the kindness of the teacher bearing in mind kindness includes that the benefit that he brings to us, is so as, or there are many, but a primary one is to overcome seeing faults in him. So we're very habituated to recognizing, or perceiving faults in others. But in relation to our spiritual teacher, seeing faults in him, in particular, having a mind that is drawn towards faults, is quite negative. Because if one really sees one's teacher as being faulty, why go to his teachings? Because who wants to be taught by someone that one is, in effect, looking down on? And secondly, though, if we do go to teachings, our mind will be critical, will be criticizing what and how is being said. And the impact of this is our mind is closed, it's not receptive. Whereas if one has rather focused on the good qualities of the teacher, so that when faults do appear to one's mind, one can readily ignore that and focus on the good qualities, one's mind is open and receptive. And we need an open and receptive mind so that we can understand the teachings and apply them to ourselves, see how they are relevant to ourselves. If our mind is critical and thereby closed, that is not possible. So therefore we need to reflect on the kindness of the teacher.
Adine lama yabu tengu res, jesa dine za lami jinja gedin chimbo yime jinja lama jitya jitu jine lama ya siju shubu res es la de ya delia noria nyanga jigore. Karasna dine za lami karishe bene nyangu res dile go mare. Jesa lami gi 최다 라미기마 최다 튠베기 최기 나란주기 최 양다바 냠는 제기 림바 송아들이야 야고를 그린 첨보래서는 안바 시주 그린 첨보돼야다 알라말야 되고지야들이 마도 내 라마레서는 야고레서는 라미 가르시나 년고레서 지려고 말해 라미 최다 미든비게 자와로시 송와이나 지지셔랍나 디 년고 말해서 왔다 디 년고 바 디지시 라마 오다 라마 진제 그린 첨보 제hen네 아니 라미 가르송베네 라미게 최다 미든비 자와지 딘 제고레서 내가 지 꾸베나 디 년고요 말해서 제산디 니수 가가래 마도 디니 차사다 지경한 주기 dini zayang chi lama jende lama ge hochi ori tingori lagedu lama karishewe ne nyango isere semba samson di mares chöda midun bigi ane jige 지 구마 구셔서야다 안에서 거기 디 미디어 고마데 소셜쇼서야다 디네길 디라칸 용구 말데네 디 멤베다 나 최다 미딘 비기 내가 자와로치 두시네 라미게 마 제쇼랍나 디 켈린 제와요 말해서 올다 디 이내다 디 진제 라말야 균죄제야다 배 독자래 삼 디삼당교 말해서 이 그런 게 연등이 차대 수랭고를 해서 슈슈 된마슈 연등이 차가지 날려도 균기 되는게 너트를 지고 최다 미팅 받으면은 어디디 내가 지금 여사 말에 사실상 어두스는 샤호를 했음 맞아야 즉 라마레스 가로 송세된 연구에서 비디 송고 말에 안디 바라데 주야게 양아 여러분
training our mind in how to relate to the teacher, we reflect on his many good qualities, his kindness and the benefit he brings into our life, and thereby his many good qualities become abundantly clear to us. And therefore, we, with sincerity, take him as a teacher, rely on him as a teacher. That being said, faults will still appear to our mind, they will arise. Perhaps those faults are valid, perhaps not. But through training well, our mind will not dwell on those faults, but we'll push them aside and focus on his good qualities. Bearing in mind, this is a teacher we've thought well of and have thereby come to see he does have an abundance of good qualities. And this is how we develop deep and sincere respect for him and want to what we have served, honor and serve him primarily through integrating his teachings within ourselves. This being said, there's another key point to state here. There is an all too real danger that a student who's not well educated in the Dharma will make a mistake and misunderstand this to think that everything that the Lama said should be accepted. This is a mistake. The way to relate to one's teacher is, as has been presented here, focus your mind on his good qualities, and if faults arise, turn your mind from those back to his good qualities so that you stay open and receptive. And when he's teaching you the Dharma, one assumes that all those teachings will be perfectly in accordance with the Dharma. Where they are, generate deep and sincere gratitude for the benefit that that is bringing to you. But should you receive any guidance or advice that is contrary to the Dharma, this you do not follow. You close your ears to, you ignore. So it's unlikely, but I'll use it as an illustration. If one's teacher were to say, "Oh, that's a terrible person, go and kill them," or "I really want that, steal it for me," should they say something like that, which is unlikely, but they may well say something that's not in accordance with the Dharma? Ignore that. Close your ears to it. Do not comply. And turn your mind back to their good qualities. They are, after all, someone you took as a teacher because they have abundant good qualities which are apparent to you. Turn your mind back there. Ignore that guidance which is contrary to the Dharma. So this is a key point to be very, very clear on.
소에 디게다 디링기 디쇼로가 니디 단다 닝보디 아저 가르송소 가르송소야 지가르라 퇴진에 지구도람 송르스나 아저기 류디 안에 미상와레 시다 닝보요 말에 schien 그디네 schien 쇼쇼스레 제데 닝보요 말 그디네 디자냐 삼다지 현다 야가지 삼마동바나 디삼로디 노트레스 제상은 이 야가데 가르스나 상이 구송 투숨 연대디 Bendigo, Shodo Yuba, Gendün Gyatso, Dorje, Dingansu Tobu Kores, Dadangazu Lunga Yusumdi, Geshe Dangje, and Dil Delia, and Sangi Yukusun Tusun Yendangazu Tobache Kores. Jitandi Topu Sampeging, the Topu Sampege, Samno de Batang Kores, Tobu Dubati Kores, or Jazada, Nanzu Lunga Yusumdi, Jidan, the Ningbo Mindu, Jazadine. 나초초 괜쇼쇼상 류기네 셈기네 녀모바 계셔 나고네 직수다 동 되네 영초쇼도 제자 닝보민도와 대상이데 구송 투순의 연된 장자래도 와 제자다 디 연된 닝보리 디 토고도 셈비게 삼로디 슉체 디땅 오레스 제상 안주기 체디 영아주 류가 있음들 괜 함제다다 연된 장장 삼다던 말레스 디니도 진짜 오레스 제자나 Bendigo and Sangi Kusung to the Gendün Gyatso de Yendangazu top 2 gravesne, top 2 graves. Carriers and other Tobiaga Tablamures, Carsene, Tabla Chenyam Cheres, Chenyam Chabalat, top 2 graves, Chenyam Cheresia. Dan Chenyam Ganichore Labdu, Jeza, Dangbo Kiwi Shin, Kiwi Lama, Di Ludin Chicken, Lama de Pate, Lama Yapo, Lama de la Devache, Lamigul. 마 럽된 제바들 배수시제 준주시제 냠는 제발에 되네 제고레스 되네 인상 아주 톱투그레스 베네 초주 상기에다 전주점 찾아 상기되기네 당봉아서 나지리 코로즈에 라마티세네 담가주 딘제베토네 안두스 냠는 제제 안두 상기바레스 디나신 마나즈네 톱투그레스 제자당 아주 냠는 제 삼로 따야데 가르스네 안데다 아담보도 손디손샤네 디교샤네
We're nearing the end of our class, so let's summarize what we've looked at in these two verses. So in the first verse, we are encouraged to look more realistically at our current state. Recognize that our body is impure and insubstantial. And through reflecting, we can see how true this is. how easily discomfort arises. Sitting for a long time becomes uncomfortable. And if we don't guard our body well, we become cold, we become ill. This happens with great ease. But this doesn't mean this is as good as it can get. In the first verse, there was a comparison with the perfected body of a Buddha. So we need to reflect on the difference, not just in terms of the body, although that's what the text explicitly states, but the speech and mind as well. And the purpose of this reflection is to give rise to a determination to achieve what is attainable for us. To recognize, through recognizing that what we have is really of low quality, but we can achieve something quite remarkable that can have an incredibly powerful impact on all those around us too. So by seeing our own state clearly and what is attainable, an aspiration to transform ourselves will arise. And that will lead naturally to the next question, also in the earlier verse. How do we transform ourselves? And that is through training our mind, meditating on the Buddha Dharma. This is the unmistaken method to radically transform our mind. So this training is presented in a sequence of trainings, and to come to understand them, it's indispensable. We rely on an authentic, a genuine spiritual teacher, and that in the second verse we've looked at. It's through relying on an authentic or genuine teacher that we can come to recognize our current situation and how to transform it. And through that guidance, we can bring about the attainment eventually of the perfected state of Buddhahood.
Mixi